Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Free Association on the Sportsnet Podcast Network. I'm JD Bunkus, joined as always by Donnovan Bennett in the Sportsnet studios, downtown Toronto, where the weather has changed in an instant. It's winter now. It's full-blown winter. No thoughts on winter?
I wasn't sure if you were done.
I was done.
We have a talent coach here at Sportsnet who's
He's got a great name.
worked with us, Bob Babinski.
Yeah, Bob Babinski.
Bob.
Bob.
Sure. One of his big things is the power of the pause.
And
Has he done power of the pause with you?
Does that answer your question?
Well, no, because you weren't learning clearly.
I don't know.
It's when you pause in between what you say for effect, or to have like the viewer, or in this case, the listener, like on the edge of what you're about to say, but also allows you to control your breathing, all this stuff. Look it up. Hire Bob. He's fantastic. But I wasn't sure if you were just pulling your power of the pause and you had something else you were going to say.
They say the power of the pause for me is in my mitts, because I got big paws. I lay it on people. How do you feel about that?
And I think Bob says is don't try and be funny when you're not funny.
Yeah.
He actually doesn't say that.
Here's the thing about that. Gonna keep trying. Gonna keep trying. If I don't have remotely funny, I don't really know what I have. Like, I'm not tall. I'm not good looking. I don't really have any skills. I can't really do anything. I'm not an athlete. What else do I have? I have to be funny. It's like a survival mechanism at this point. Like, if we were back in the day and there was a kingdom and they said, what are we going to do with this peasant? I would be applying for court jester. I'd be like, throw tomatoes at me because I have nothing else to offer. Please hit me with a tomato.
I mean, you could be smart, knowledgeable,
I don't have those things.
well-researched.
I don't have that. That's your thing.
You don't have well-researched? That's
No.
literally something anyone could have.
No,
it's just effort and applying time.
Spoken like a guy who does his homework. I cannot. I stare at a book for 5 minutes and I just have to reread the same 2 sentences over and over and over again. I'm a dumb guy. I don't know how you haven't got this yet. Like, I've been in here with you for years. You haven't picked that up? Do I look like a Mr. Book over here? That's what you get when you talk to me? Oh, that guy, he's reading lots of books.
I don't know if anyone
Archimedes
looks like Mr. Book, to quote you.
Well, it's not me. If someone looks like Mr. Book, it's not me.
Are you guys rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
How long now?
It's Mr. Book and Bennett on the Sportsnet Podcast Network.
You guys, 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
This is about the time.
Yeah. Hey, it's about that time.
Have you filibustered enough?
It's about that
talk about
basketball time. I have some weather thoughts, but I'll save them maybe for later or another day.
Great.
Man, Kawhi versus the Raptors. It finally happened. I will say this. It kind of sucked that the first game was on the road. You agree?
Yeah, I hear that.
It kind of sapped a little bit of the juice. There was this incredible football game going on, and I'm a Seahawks fan, so it was a little harder for me to leave and go over. They're neck and neck with the Niners. They're in this battle. And so that definitely played into it a little bit more for me, but 10:30 start, so everybody's kind of reluctantly watching it, and then the Clippers obviously don't put anything together. Why would they? They're like, hey, welcome, Kawhi. Your ex is in town. Like, you don't advertise that thing. So it felt a little incomplete, especially since there was no Kyle, there's no Serge. OG gets gouged in the eye, like, the young lion in the pride that tried to go step up to the king lion, and Kawhi was like, give me your eye. And that ended really quickly. I was underwhelmed. I don't know if that's how other people feel. It just, to me, it didn't have the juice I thought it was going to. Like, the Lakers game had more juice to me.
I mean, I think the Lakers game was more surprising. First of all, you're a Seahawks fan, and they're playing the Niners, which is a division rival. It's not an excuse. Sportsnet now exists for this very reason.
I was using Sportsnet now. How dare you try to expose me for not using Sportsnet now?
You said you had to flip. I'm sorry. Is that not what you heard? He had to flip.
Hey,
you can have multiple screens, multiple devices, and with the new Ignite Sports app, you can just fire up the box score on the side of the television.
Box score. Who lives that way?
People with the Sportsnet Ignite app. Anyways, speaking of the game, the Lakers game, top 5 Raptors regular season games
ever.
In terms of like fun and excitement, the enjoyment of watching
I
it.
agree.
I'm trying to think of another regular season game that I really, really cared about. The double OT when Kawhi and KD went at it back to back last year. That was pretty fun. But no, like it was not just the way they played in LA on the front end of back-to-back. It was who they played and who played well and who was standing on the sidelines, in the case of Kyle Lowry, standing literally in the coach's box on the sideline in finely tailored threads, cheering them on because they weren't available to play. That's why the Lakers game was fun. The Kawhi game is going to get a lot of talk because it is Kawhi and it is the first time that they saw their ex up close and personal. But it was just another basketball game, if we're being honest. It was just another game for Kawhi because that's the way he's built. And it was just another game for them. When he comes back here, that will be special.
Yeah, that will feel different. Again, when he gets the raucous ovation from Raptors fans. And I know a lot was made about the Raptors fans who traveled to go see that Clippers game. And kudos to them. I would guess, I'm assuming that a lot of those fans would have been Western Canadian fans where the trip's a little bit easier. That's quite the haul to go from Toronto when you have the team here to go visit and fly to go see the first Kawhi Leonard game. But I think that's actually a great point.
Well, you probably made a vacation out of it.
Yeah, maybe.
You got Lakers, Clippers back-to-back in LA.
Yeah, maybe you went and saw both.
You go and see Lily Singh, who was at the game that was on Sportsnet. Danielle Michaud, friend of the show, interviewed her. You go catch a show, do the Rodeo Drive thing, enjoy the fact that the weather there is not like it is here.
Yeah, did you see Brad Fay's tweet?
I did not. No.
Brad Fay just had a tweet that was, "Oh, I wonder why Kawhi left," and he just took a picture of the blue sky. And as I saw that tweet, it was the morning of the first snowfall here, where I just looked out the window and I just was mad. I just looked at that snow and I was furious. And then I totally understood Kawhi Leonard. So
there are people who like the first snowfall, though.
I hate the first snowfall, but I like snow. Weirdly, I don't know. I like fall more. Fall is my season. Fall is when I'm me. It's like I can put on a couple pounds. I wear a vest. I start breaking out the hoodies. I can wear like cool jackets. I like to buy a jacket here or there. And then, you can still wear sneakers. I'm a big fall guy. Let's just put it that way. Not in the Chris Carter sense, in like the weather sense. For those of you that remember the Chris Carter thing. But you make a good point about the Lakers thing, which is I think that actually sapped a little bit of the energy out, is that was such a high playing the Lakers like that and having the Raptors come out and surprise and beat LeBron James, and you got, Chris Boucher making all these blocks, and the Raptors come through. They find a way to beat the Lakers. They beat LeBron James. They beat Danny Green. They beat Anthony Davis. They do it in just like a real emphatic fashion down the stretch. And then the next night, that's a schedule loss. It's 10:30 at night. It's not Kawhi Leonard in your building. It didn't feel the same way. But I agree with you about Kawhi. I think to Kawhi, it's just any other game. Like once he gets between the lines, he's just Kawhi Leonard. But I thought that the Raptors, the way that they treated him in that ball game, maybe that's just Nick Nurse coaching. Maybe they do that the next time they see him. Maybe that's just a smart strategy to do. But they made it tough on him, man. Like he didn't have a field goal till the second half. They just attacked him relentlessly, and they threw bodies, and they left it all out there. And it made me feel like for those Raptors guys that they view it the way I do, which is, I'll get your how do you feel? Let me just ask you first. How do you feel when you watch Kawhi in terms of your feelings about whether he should have stayed? Do you think about that stuff anymore, or do you just watch a basketball game last night?
I just watched the basketball game. I will say, and my feeling with Kawhi going there in general, and he's going home, and I respect it, and I rate it, and if I were him, I would have probably done the exact same thing. But it is tough, I suppose, for some, to get over an ex when you're left for someone that's like not that good.
That's me.
You really?
So,
like, would you prefer to be left for someone who is really good?
I want you to leave me for someone better than me, because then I have to wonder, like, how bad am I if you left me for just another person? The thing is, they didn't have Paul George in that game. That's fine. Two things. One, actually, let me save the second one as a question to you. The first thing is how I feel about it as the ex. I am the type of person who, you haven't been in a different relationship in a really long time. How long have you been with your wife?
8 years.
So Facebook was out when you broke up with somebody. Yeah,
good
for sure.
question.
Yeah. It's a 10-year anniversary. It's over 10 years old. But like when I
Actually,
have
no. Facebook existed for my last relationship.
when I was in relationships that ended, and if I ever saw, on the old Facebook feed, pictures or now Instagram feed, pictures of my ex with her new beau, on a vacation trip, made me feel bad. I don't like seeing it. You know what? I'm happy for her.
Do you scrub your own Facebook of photos of your exes?
No, because I don't really post pictures of my exes just to make sure I avoid this problem. I know I have commitment issues.
Well,
so.
they're not exes at the time.
No, I know, but
Presents.
no. It's a preemptive strike, though, is that I don't post pictures of me and the girls I'm dating because I'm. Anyway,
You're waiting for them to be your
like,
ex?
I don't want to have to make that decision of down the line going out. I can't even commit to a picture on my Instagram. That's how bad
So
my
you
commitment
don't
issues are.
show your love to the world.
Yep.
So that your future self doesn't have to press.
Well, I
delete?
don't feel the need. I'm like Drake. I don't need to show my love to the world. I protect my world from the love, or whatever that line was in the last album.
Drake has made his love every album he's ever made. I think it's the exact opposite.
But in private, he's not name dropping.
Okay.
My feeling is that
Actually, I think he is name dropping.
maybe.
How do we know who he's dated? Because he's name dropped them in songs.
I mean, he kind of made it pretty clear about the Kim Kardashian thing. But that's another story.
I was referring to Rihanna and Serena.
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly in love with them. Where was I?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I understand that people can live a better life without me. I see some of these girls with their new guys, and they're giving them things that I could never give them. And that's how I feel about Kawhi. It's like, we could never give you the weather, Kawhi. We could never give you a place where your family felt that they were at home. You would have always felt like you were in a different place. And the reason we never found out anything about Kawhi Leonard and what his decision-making was going to be is that his camp is his family, right? Like, that dude keeps his family close. They travel with him. If he would have stayed in Toronto, he was making the decision for all of his family members to live in Toronto. And I think that was a bridge too far for him. He wanted to be back in LA. He wanted to have a superstar with him in Paul George. He got his wish. I don't begrudge him necessarily. But I want Kawhi to think about me. And me being the Raptors. Like, I want Kawhi every once in a while, he can't sleep, and he goes down into the basement, and he pours a glass of wine, and he opens up the Facebook page of the Raptors, and he scrolls, and he looks at Pascal Siakam, and he looks at Pascal Siakam's highlights, and he's like, I wonder what could have been. They sure look like they treat him nice, Like, I just want you to think about me. I just want you to think every once in a while what could have been. And that's all. And I think the Raptors did a great job of that. Like, I think that Siakam's growth and OG's growth and Fred's growth and the veterans still playing at a high level and Nick Nurse's coaching, the culture that the Raptors have, I think it's enough for Kawhi that if he doesn't win this year, he's always going to wonder, what if? If he doesn't win next year, he's definitely going to wonder, did I have my priorities right? And I think it's kind of fair, and this is my question to you, I've been rambling for a little while. Do you think it's fair to criticize Kawhi if the Clippers don't win over the next 2 seasons for having his priorities in the wrong order?
No, because they're his priorities.
I know,
so
but
by definition, whatever order he puts them in
Sure.
is the correct order.
But from a winning
for him.
standpoint, do you think that in the Eastern Conference where everybody took a step back, that Raptors team doesn't look like they're defending champions if they have Kawhi Leonard on the roster, that it's more of a sure bet than the Clippers are right now?
No, because if it was just about winning a ring, he would still be in LA. It's just he would be with the Lakers. Because that would have been much more of a sure bet than coming back to Toronto.
That's fair.
I don't know anything about Kawhi. I don't pretend to know anything about him. I don't.
He's a fun guy. You didn't hear?
New Balance has told me that once or twice. But if I were to guess, I don't think that he is the type to scroll social media and look at his NBA X and be like,
I don't think so either, but I want him to.
Nice. Yeah, but the point is, I don't think he's ever going to do that because I don't think he's cut from that cloth. When I look at Kawhi in this situation, it's more so you're booed at a Dodgers game. You're booed at opening night in your building when you, for some godforsaken reason, by the game ops of the Clippers, were given the mic to address the crowd.
Hey.
I just feel like I know we're overbearing. And we had a helicopter follow you, and it was live on CP24 for like 3 hours.
We loved you too much.
And there was people surrounding the Hazelton. The people were on TV doing hits about how many entrances and exits there may or may not be in the Hazelton.
I miss those times.
And we had real reports as to what private schools his children may or may not attend. And this guy could not even go to Niagara Falls and get his Maid of the Mist on without people following him. Despite all of that, I'm like, at least it came from a good place.
Yeah.
Because people care. Because people are invested.
Yep.
In Los Angeles, for the Clippers specifically, nobody cares. Nobody's invested. And he could win a championship this year. He could win a championship next year. That will forever be a Lakers town. So it's like, who are you winning this championship for? For Billy Crystal and Steve Ballmer? Like, ultimately, if at the end of it, it doesn't actually change the way people feel about the franchise, and you don't have millions of people out at the parade, many of which are saying this is the best day in their basketball life, well, then, like, what was the point?
Well, I think from a legacy standpoint, strangely enough, if he left a title contender, was the first guy to do it, and then go won a ring with his third franchise as the best player, it's sneaky better for his legacy because it's like you remove all the parts and one thing is true, Kawhi Leonard continues to win, right? So even if it's with Paul George, even if you think it's a better, I don't mean you specifically, I mean the greater you, the collective you, believe that the Clippers are a better roster than what the Raptors have, it still looks better on him, the individual. You're right about the Lakers.
But he could do that with the Lakers, and you could say, well, maybe he wouldn't be the clear-cut best player. I think
no, but that's the problem. He wouldn't have got the credit on that team.
But he could do that with the Nets or the Knicks. Like, he didn't have to do it with the Clippers.
Yeah. Yeah, you're saying that he went from a overbearing relationship to a loveless marriage.
Well, he went to an overbearing relationship to one where I'm home, and the relationship is secondary.
Yeah.
Because I am so good that I could make any team a contender, and I don't really care if the fan base is engaged. And quiet as kept, he probably prefers that the fan base is not engaged.
That is maybe true. I've never thought about that. I don't think he likes getting booed in LA because it's still his hometown. Like the Rams game was awkward.
But who was going to foresee that? We didn't think that it was going to be a Clippers town, but we didn't think he was going to get booed.
Yeah. In Toronto, I've said this before, I've made this joke before, but Kawhi had the love that like only dictators get to enjoy, where you get to go to a public space and everyone's like, yay! You know, like no one is booing you, no one is saying a bad word, everybody loves you, no one's stepping out of line. In LA, it's a little bit different. He's a really eye-opening experience. Yeah, I think if Kawhi Leonard would have stayed in Toronto, it's becoming more and more clear to me that the team would have been the favorites to repeat, like the heavy favorites to repeat. That this year it's a little bit more muddied. The Western Conference is tough. That Lakers team is going to coalesce. They probably still have a move to make. I think the Clippers are the favorite, but I can see a scenario where they get knocked off in the playoffs in a tough 7-game series against the Utah Jazz. Like there's a reality, there's a timeline I can see that way. I think it's more likely that happens than it would have happened out east, where he would have played an underwhelming group of teams that Bucks are worse. Losing Brogdon hurt them. Sixers are worse. Al Horford does not look like Boston Celtics Al Horford, and the fit is a little muddied so far, and they lost Jimmy Butler, who was their most threatening guy. And there hasn't been another team that's really stepped up and looked like a real Eastern contender. The Raptors, as of right now, I don't think it's a 0% chance they come out of the Eastern Conference without Kawhi Leonard. So if they had him, I think it's a totally different ballgame. I think all of their guys continue to progress the same way. They all go work in the summer the same way. Everything's the same. They just have Kawhi Leonard. And that's tough for me to ignore.
Here's a Kawhi take that I'd love your perspective on. And
sure.
Viewers on YouTube, listeners via your headphones, I'd love your perspective on as well.
Sure.
Part of the value in the whole mythology around Team USA that Coach K before, Coach Pop, and Colangelo, who's overseeing it, said is there's a value in getting all the greatest players together because you're going to learn some things that it's going to take your game to another level. And when LeBron James thought he worked hard, and then he was on the same team as Kobe Bryant, he's like, there's a different level to this. And when you look at the history of until this current team, if you look at the history of Team USA players, there's always couple guys who come back and take another step. Steph Curry's massive year is after he was one of the best players on a world championship team. Derrick Rose comes back, is an MVP. So being around those other elite players rubs off on those who are paying attention and willing to put in the extra work. That was some of the secret. The other thing was that guys are just going to have conversations and say, hey, in a couple years, let's play on the same team. Whether it was Iguodala with KD and Steph, or apparently, according to Jackie McMullen, Kyrie with Kevin Durant and DeAndre Jordan. I say all that to say this. One of the things you heard last year from the people around the Raptors team is Kawhi may only be here 1 year. Mm-hmm. It is a slim chance that he'll be happy here, that he'll be healthy, and so on and so forth. But there is a real value in having him in this building so that that residual learning cascades to other people. And I heard that. I was like, oh, this is brilliant. It's got to be OG Anunoby. Same position, same demeanor, same body type. Maybe Norm Powell from the same city, both kind of, guys who came in as defensive players and then figured out their offensive shot as they went. The guy who it's been, if you now talk to them a year later, is Pascal Siakam.
Okay.
Look at their numbers. Mm-hmm. They're almost identical. Mm-hmm. But more so, it was who on Good Show compared Siakam to Kevin Garnett?
I think it was. Oh, I can't get Henry Abbott. It's the guy who invented PER, John Hollinger.
But more so, the infectious way that Siakam and Kawhi at times is like this when he's not managing an injury. His energy impacts the other guys he's on the floor with. Mm-hmm. I think Kawhi's impact, if we talk to Siakam, if he's giving a Hall of Fame speech in 15 or 20 years, Kawhi's impact is that he every day, not by saying a word, mm-hmm. but just by the way he worked, he laid like a blueprint for Siakam to follow. I was like, oh, okay, here's how you become a superstar as a wing player.
I agree. I actually think that the impact is greater than on Siakam. I think it did permeate throughout the entire organization. I think that OG Anunoby has taken lessons. Like, to me, there is evidence that he left behind. I can't remember what the term is for it, but like it's resonated. The resonance from Kawhi Leonard is still with the franchise, and yeah, you do see it when you look at Pascal Siakam. You do see it when you look at OG Anunoby. I do want to talk more about this because the Raptors suffered big injuries, and that's meaning more on the plates of that guy specifically. And I want to get into that because I think that's a really, really good point. I think it's a really, really smart point. Just want to take a quick second to tell you about Sportsnet's Raptors newsletter. It's new this year. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, so you probably should have already been subscribed. I don't even know why we're wasting our time with this because you did it. You already did it. Here, actually, this is the new read. Congratulations to you for subscribing to Sportsnet's Raptors newsletter done by Stevie Lung. Again, you already know because you're already subscribed because we've told you now for a couple of weeks that you get original content, you get opinion, you get analysis, and you know that you got it at sportsnet.ca/newsletter. I think that's pretty straightforward. I want to touch on what you said about Siakam and just the way that he's seemingly he's just almost fluidly transitioned taking the mantle from Kawhi Leonard. And that a lot of it is, you're right, Kawhi Leonard leaving the blueprint of work ethic with defense first mentality, with adding something to your game every offseason, with making sure that you now have, you see Siakam now with some of the shots he's taking in the mid-range, and those were never there before, especially off the dribble. You see the stuff above the arc, and yeah, it's hard not to compare him to Kawhi Leonard, especially when you mention, the numbers and you look at them. It's like point per game, usage, everything. Like you go across the board, and it's Kawhi-sian. Kawhi-sian? That's the way we'll go about this. The Raps are now down Kyle Lowry, Serge Ibaka, and OG Anunoby is out for the next little bit anyways. He's got an eye injury. Kawhi, if you had to power rank dead last guys you'd want to take a finger in the eye from, I think Kawhi Leonard would probably be at the pretty high top of the tip of the mountain. Are you at all worried that Siakam, who is already taking on so much of his plate, is now going to have to do even more? Like 44 minutes against the Clippers on the second half of a back-to-back on the third game in 4 nights. You could really see it wear on him in that fourth quarter against the Clippers.
I think it wore on the whole team.
Yeah.
Because it was a second night for back-to-back, and because both games were close and both games went into the fourth quarter. I mean, they shot 4 of 23 in the fourth quarter.
Oof.
Lots of those misses were short. So I think certainly they were tired on this West Coast trip, which is the longest West Coast trip that they're going to have. But am I worried about it being too much for Siakam to bear? No, because I think that the difference is going to be made up in the margins. This injury situation that they're now under, with Lowry out for an extended period, Serge Ibaka probably out
at least a month
for longer. They're both probably going to be out. Well, I mean, Kyle's unpredictable because he might just show up and say, I'm playing.
Yeah. Listen, there's a Philly game in a couple of weeks, and I think that you should circle your calendar and at least put a little wager. If, like, the, hey, when is a baby going to be born pools? Like, if you were doing the when does Kyle Lowry return pool, like, all the money would be on that Philly date.
Yeah, he's missed Lakers, Clippers. He's probably going to miss at Blazers, at Mavericks, versus the Hornets, versus the Magic, and at Hawks, which would then get him back in for the Philly game, assuming that's the case. But remember, they said he was going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. That doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be back in 2 weeks. And he's had some thumb issues before. He had a thumb issue this offseason, which is why he really didn't play for USA and start training camp playing fully. But he also, after he hurt his thumb, the distal phalanx of his thumb.
There's that research in Mr. Book again.
He came back and he hit 2 threes. So who knows? And it is not his shooting hand. They're going to have to ride other guys, which to me, in the long run, is a blessing in disguise. Because if you've been listening to this podcast, the last 2 at least, we said, where's the depth on this team? How many people can Nick Nurse trust? Well, now he has no choice. And on the road, in a tough spot, on back-to-back nights, he was forced to find a bench. Not in a throwaway game where they scored 124 points and they ran away with things before they played the Lakers. They had to find a bench, and just to get through the game, what they found was the bench was not just treading water. They were extending leads. They were getting them back in ball games, or in the case of the Lakers game, pulling away. So I was here asking for a bench mob, and I'm not sure we're going to get that, but
I thought you were going to come up with a good bench name. Are you?
No, I got nothing.
Oh, I was so ready for the Donnovan Bennett special of just naming this bench.
No, but I love. We had Lowry with the bench. I loved Siakam with the bench. I don't know if you remember, they started the fourth tie game. This is who's on the floor.
Yep.
Siakam, Terrence Davis, Matt Thomas, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, and Chris Boucher in LA against the super team-ish, championship contending Lakers. They go on a 13-3 run before there's a stoppage in play. They end up going on a 17-7 run before Fred comes in for Thomas. I really like that second unit because they all defend and they all give you energy.
So I'll ask you who you like the most of that group in a second. It's a blessing and a curse to me because the Siakam thing is at least something to red flag, and it's also a Fred VanVleet thing to red flag. Because to me, the scary part is when Lowry and Ibaka went down, it made me feel like, well, what's the solution? How are you going to patch things up? Raptors don't really have a lot of bigs, in case you notice. They don't really have a lot of point guards, in case you notice. Like, Terrence Davis and Chris Boucher have been nice. Like, they've been nice in small flashes. But to me, this main solution was like, well, now more point Siakam. So it's like now Pascal Siakam's your point guard. He's your power forward. He's your backup center in some spots. He's just your everything guy. And he's playing 44 minutes again on the second half of a back-to-back where they're trying to win. And I know that we're in the load management era. We just came off of Kawhi. we're probably a little bit hypersensitive about guys playing too many minutes and how it's going to wane on them. But the example that I actually think back on was last season with James Harden. James Harden, when they lost Chris Paul, it was, remember that? Every night, you got to watch James Harden. You got to see what he's going to be doing. James Harden just putting it all out there every single night. He's going to drop 50. He's going to do this. He's the entire offense. He's going to be everything for this Rockets team. I think it caught up with James Harden a little bit. Like, I think that stuff can burn you a bit on the back end. And it's not excusing all the Rockets' problems, but I do think that there's a cumulative effect to this stuff. And if you need Pascal Siakam to be your everything for a month in the middle of the season, that maybe it catches him on the back end. There's a bit of too much of an assumption. I heard it in the broadcast, and I think that we all have this tendency. Is like Siakam's such an incredible athlete that I think there's this mentality of, well, he doesn't get tired. But he does get tired. He went 0-6 in that Clippers game from 3 before he hit his first one. His legs weren't there. He wasn't boxing guys out. He had his hands on his hips. That's not the Siakam that I'm used to. And once you start to gas him out, I think you take away a lot of what makes him special. And so it's not a burning problem. It's at least something that I'm going to be monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, the difference with Harden is Mike D'Antoni is not running the 7 seconds or less Suns anymore. It is ball screen, ball screen, ball screen, dribble, dribble, dribble. You are the point of attack solely, and everything comes off of you, which is obviously draining, especially when you don't have someone to pass it to when you're tired, who can save you a couple possessions and then allow you to run things. When you're doing that and you have literally 10 eyes defensively fixated on you all the time, it's going to be draining. Pascal Siakam may start the first action, but under Nurse's offense, specifically when the second unit's on the floor, there's going to be a second action, there's going to be a third action. There will be times where Pascal Siakam and his ability to either dominate his matchup or draw a double team will start a cascade of events where someone else in the possession will get a shot that they should be able to make as an NBA player. And so I don't think it's going to be the same offensive toll on Pascal the way it is in your comparison with Harden.
Worse.
The difference is that Pascal is expected and needed to contribute on the defensive end.
That's what I mean.
Where James Harden isn't. But I think when we're looking at who this impacts negatively or positively, I look at other people. You mentioned the fact that they don't have a lot of center depth. I would kind of argue like they have 3 centers that can play in the NBA. How many teams have more than that?
Is Boucher really a center though? Like, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, he's not playing beside Gasol or Ibaka that much.
But that's what I mean, out of kind of necessity here. Let me just say this. Let me put it this way to you. Who have you been most impressed by off of the Raptors bench in these last couple of games? Because you're right, that is the benefit, is getting to play the bench guys. And I think that it was a huge benefit that those guys got to play in meaningful games against the Lakers and an emotional game against the Clippers. And you really do see what Nick Nurse is talking about in terms of there's a way we do things here and there's an effort level that's required from this Raptors team. And the bench guys have come through in spades. Like, Boucher's been awesome. Davis has been awesome. Thomas has had flashes. I think Rondae Hollis-Jefferson has actually really contributed in a positive way. He's done the things that you expect Rondae Hollis-Jefferson to do. Which of those guys has stood out the most to you? It's Boucher, right?
Probably is Boucher. It's tough, man. A bunch of them have. I mean, Boucher for sure. He gives you 15 points on 7-11 shooting versus the Lakers and 3 blocks and drops a 3. Then against Clippers, 13 points, 5 of 10 shooting, 3 threes and 2 blocks. His ability to he had the rep coming out of college that he had a lot of show me blocks. Like, I'm going to throw it in the stands. I mean, I'm making up for the fact that I played bad defense or was in bad position in the first place. And so what was the real value of those blocks? Some of these blocks are help blocks. Some of them are on great players at the rim, like LeBron James and Kawhi. And
the block he had on Montrezl Harrell with 2 hands was like one of the most impressive. He's so skinny. I thought Montrezl Harrell was going to blow right through him. He stuffed him.
Well, and how many of those blocks have started fast breaks going the other way? Because he literally spiked them back out by the 3-point line. So Boucher's the guy who I've been impressed with. I've also been impressed with Terrence Davis. 4 assists versus the Lakers. That's not just being able to get the ball over half. That's really making smart decisions with the basketball. But the maybe the guy I've been most impressed with is not anyone who's on that bench unit. It's a guy who used to be and now, because of the injuries, is starting. And that's Norm Powell.
Really? I've been super disappointed with Norm.
Why?
I just think Norm he's stagnated. To me, now Norm is who he is.
See, I think people have Norm pegged in the Terrence Ross role where you have moments, you salivate me on with what you do at times, but we don't see it consistently.
That sounds like you just talked about Norm Powell to me.
Or Terrence Ross.
I know, but that's what I mean. Like when you use that description, I'm like, that's him. That's what he's been doing.
But here's the thing. He's now 3 consecutive games in double-figure scoring. Specifically against the Lakers, 14, 5 of 9 shooting, 5 rebounds. Clippers, 15 points, 5 of 12 shooting, 4 rebounds. Putting him in the starting lineup and saying, listen, he's not going to start for this team, but saying every night you're going to come to the arena, you know exactly who you're going to play with, how much you're going to play, that settles a player.
Do you think he looks different?
I think he's played well. I think he's played well. Of all the guys that we want to laud of how they've stepped up with the recent rash of injuries, I think Norm's one of those guys. He just hasn't done it with the other guys who are on the bench. He's done it with the starters.
Yeah, I just think Norm, like the way you described Terrence Davis is how I feel about Norm.
Terrence Ross.
Sorry, yeah. Definitely, yeah. Terrence Davis, maybe someday. There's moments where you look at him and you say, wow, that was really nice. That was a great take to the basket. I know you can do that. Wow, he made a big 3 in a big spot. Wow, he got in a lane and he forced a tough play. But it's just the defense is not as good as I think we ever expected it to be. I think his size is a limiting factor, but I think his decision-making can at times be questioned. I think that the hitch in his shot in the 3 has never been really figured out, and that's a problem. I think Norm is fine. Like, Norm is fine. I haven't been blown away. I thought maybe there would be a step this year. I thought that knowing that he was going to be leaned on more offensively, that there would be a little bit of a step, and he looks very much like there hasn't been anything really added to his game. The Davis thing is super interesting to me because he's so quick. And that Lakers game, like when you were talking about that run they went on, a big part of that run was Terrence Davis just breaking their perimeter defense down, getting it inside and shoveling it off to, a Rondé Hollis-Jefferson for a layup, a Siakam for a layup, or Boucher for an open 3. Like, he was getting guys open looks. And it really impresses me when guys play at that speed and they can also think at that speed. Like, he's really smart. Like, he just makes good decisions. Every once in a while, he pulls up for a jump shot that I'm not thrilled with, but like, he's a rookie and he's asked to do a lot right now. But overall, the Terrence Davis experience is like, it's very, very clear that he was a senior, right? That he's an older rookie and that he's got experience playing in big games and that he knows how to play with a good team.
Yes. And the other thing that is apparent to me about him, and it's true of Boucher as well, but Boucher, I mean, he's literally playing for his NBA life in a sense. Davis is undrafted. You would think that there's a sense that he would just kind of be happy to be here. No, not at all. It's fearless, willing to take big shots, willing to go right at people at the rim. He's on a 2-on-1 fast break with Pascal Siakam, and Pascal's calling for the ball. He's like, no, I'm taking it to the cup.
Yeah, man.
And that's the part of him that I really, really am surprised by, but also really enjoy. And, I mean, Davis has done it quickly already, but so in soccer, there's academies where, you know what? If you send a player to get some grooming at Sporting Lisbon or Benfica or Tottenham Hotspur or Everton or right now Crystal Palace, you send them there for a year or 2 years, you're going to come back with a better player for your team. I almost feel like if they had that in the NBA, the Raptors would be the finishing school for other franchises because we're seeing it in real time with the guys who are not only starting rotation guys, Fred, Norm, Pascal. We're seeing it with the guys who are contributing with the bench. And Davis would be, I guess, the most recent example.
It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that this organization is going to get the best out of a guy who comes from the G League like Chris Boucher at 27, or an undrafted free agent in Terrence Davis, or a European signing in Matt Thomas, right? Like, this is almost, at this point, too predictable that those guys are playing well for this team. And it made me think of something, actually, and maybe this is a good way to wrap this up. You and I love talking about identity, right? Like, we've done this in the past. Like, what's the Raptors' identity? Who are they as a group? Like, what is the foundation of them? And I think that part of it now is still the defense. You know, they still are a tough team to play against defensively. But really, when I was watching that Clippers game, as they're completely gassed out and they're shooting 4-24, but they're still leaving it all out there, and they're still trying to play defense. Like, those guys still were trying to chase Kawhi and double him and hound him and make his shots difficult. The Raptors' identity is effort. They are the effort team. And it's not just on the floor, game in, game out. It's away from the arena as well. Like, when you talked about Siakam and him getting the blueprint, he did it. Raptors had a championship offseason. Like, they all could have gone to Barbados, and they just could have, I keep wanting to say a swear word off, but they all could have screwed off, and they didn't really have to put anything in. They had all this equity. They could have come back and said, we didn't have Kawhi Leonard. Like, what do you expect from us? Marc Gasol showed up. He played in Europe all summer. He's a little tired. Kyle Lowry was dealing with a thumb thing. We're not really going to be 100%. They came out of the gate and they had chemistry. You know why they have chemistry with Chris Boucher? Because he went and played with those guys this summer. He went and showed up. He played with those dudes. They went to workouts. He made sure that he got time with Pascal Siakam. He made sure he got time with Norm Powell, with Fred VanVleet. These dudes were playing in scrimmages against other NBA players as a unit, as a team. Like, these guys bond. They work. They work away from the arena. And it's why when Nick Nurse said, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson and Stanley Johnson don't get it yet. Like, they're not committing to what we do here yet. When Fred VanVleet talks about it, when all the players buy in, it's because that's who they are. They are a team who does not cheat you. They do not cheat each other. They work hard. Games and away from the arena. And that's who they are. The work hard team. The effort team.
I don't know if you can put the work hard team on a T-shirt and really sell it.
I mean, I would buy it.
The work hard team?
The work hard team. Someone make me that shirt, I'll buy it from you. The work hard team with Raptors patent pending logo.
So effort to me is not just, physical. I'm going to dive on the floor. I'm going to, try and get as many second chance points as I can. Effort is also attention to detail.
Yeah.
And not only do they provide all of that energy that you're talking about, they also execute. They don't beat themselves, and quite frankly, they can't afford to. And the fact that Kawhi Leonard post-game said this was the most aggressive defensive commitment I've seen. I haven't seen them be that aggressive in their trapping when I was on the team. They're showing him
Kawhi.
4 and 5 bodies. And so on back-to-back nights, to have LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard, two guys who physically could just will their way to the basket whenever they feel like it, hold them to a combined 25 points. Mm-hmm. If you want to take anything from those two games, and everyone's boosting their tires, there is going to be a lull. They're going to struggle. But the thing that you can take from the small sample size that is the first 10 games of the year is in a playoff series, when you have one superstar that you need to shut down, whether it is Giannis or Embiid or Kemba Walker, whoever that happens to be, they've shown that they have the commitment and intelligence to be able to execute the game plan. And that takes mental effort. It's not just about physical effort. So for me, their identity would be, if I was a coach on that staff, what I would write on the whiteboard as our slogan, don't be dumb.
That's their identity, is don't be dumb.
Don't be dumb. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
They are unafraid, whether it's Terrence Davis or Pascal Siakam, to go at some of the best players in the league, even though their pedigree says that they should be. And they are not in a situation where they can afford to, and thankfully so far they haven't, done things that will beat themselves.
It sounds like you're with me on effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This has been a good effort. Should you want to? How much time? What are we at for time here?
Too long.
So let me have you tell the audience a little bit more about NBA Chat Room, with you and Faisal, and then we'll wrap this thing up with a 5-minute conversation about the Knicks Masai rumors.
Well, NBA Chat Room is not the place where You're going to wear, what was the T-shirt you said?
Work hard team.
Work hard team, yeah. We are a team
The
that
work
works
hard team.
hard here at Sportsnet. Sportsnet Digital put together NBA chat room, but we're not going to wear that T-shirt because the show is about breaking down great fashion in the NBA, the culture around the league, and work hard team would not be considered great fashion. But on Wednesdays, and people often comment on our fashion and think it's not that great. Every Wednesday at 7
That feels
Eastern,
harsh.
it's real life. Deal with it. We have an NBA conversation, not dissimilar to this, where we break down what's going on with the Raptors, but what's going on around the league. It is interactive. It is on YouTube. So subscribe to our YouTube channel because if you are watching this video, you'll get more content like it. But you'll get a little alert when we go live so that you can watch along with us. The show is interactive. We want your comments throughout. You can actually help program the show as we have polls throughout telling us really what we should and shouldn't talk about. One thing that we always talk about is NBAA. We've picked a Canadian that we want to highlight because it is a place for Canada's basketball team, but also basketball in Canada. We also, another staple of the show, pour one out. We've got some water there. You can do it if you will. People who we've lost over the last NBA week because they may have been dunked on or crossed over or just made a ridiculous decision like Eric Bledsoe and decided he was playing rec basketball and could just dribble from outside of the court.
I love that.
Do you really?
Yeah, go Eric Bledsoe all the way. I'm so glad that you told me that there's an interactive part of this that, I can force you to talk about what I want to talk about because all I'm going to say is talk about your personal life, more personal life talk. I also thought of you as a dad. I can already picture you saying that to your son someday. It's real life. Deal with it. Like that's gonna be a Donnovan Bennett staple in the household someday when he comes to you with some problems. Okay.
My wife often catches me because I'll say to my son, "What are you crying for?" And she's like,
"He's one, right? He's not even one.
He's 6 months old."
Yeah. Okay.
But that's very. I don't know if it's the West Indian in me, but I was like, what are you crying for? I'll give you something to cry for.
Oh, wow.
But maybe I'll become a little bit softer with him.
Here's my guess. You won't. Let's bring in our producer, Amel Delic, because he's going to read from us a little quote from Frank Isola's most recent piece up on The Athletic, which talked about the Knicks and their turmoil and their direction that they're going to go on.
So thank goodness Donovan's not the daddy of this pod because that'd be a tough pod to.
Donovan kind of is the daddy of this pod, wouldn't you say?
Jeez Louise. What are you crying about? My goodness.
Amel is, to be honest.
I don't think so. I'm way friendlier. So, quote, according to several people familiar with the Knicks thinking, James Dolan is plotting to take another run at Toronto Raptors president Masai-to-the-Knicks. Several NBA team executives and scouts in town for last week's college basketball doubleheader at the Garden were linking Ujiri to the Knicks. So the story is making its rounds in NBA circles.
But I'll let you take the first stab at this.
Question, out of 10, 10 being, oh boy, we're in trouble, and 1 being, I don't care about this story, let's move on. Where do you rank this?
I'll let you take the first stab at this, but I will say there is a real value at writing a story, if you are an American writer, related to the Raptors and a rumor of someone coming here or leaving here. Because you know that the fan base is going to consume and going to conversate. I will leave the floor.
I think that's dead right. And I think that the Toronto Blue Jays taught everyone that lesson in 2015, that you would write anything about the Blue Jays, you'd say anything about the Blue Jays, and it was everywhere. And everyone was like, holy crap, their fan base is massive there. And the Raptors thing, you could always get a rise of their fans with being like, disrespect us. They're like, cool, you're respecting us with your clicks and your mentions and all these different things. We love you, Raptors fans. You're our favorite ones. To me, this is a -1 threat level. Honest to God, how many times are we going to do this, Knicks? You have the Knicks are the dice move. It's like they got one move. It's like they keep doing the same move. I think he's doing the dice move too much. We get it. You want Masai Ujiri. Why is he going to go to the Knicks? Like the Knicks have this unbelievably inflated ego. in terms of their place in the NBA ecosystem. Like, we're going to get Kevin Durant. No. We're going to get LeBron. No. You didn't get anybody. You couldn't even get Kyrie. You couldn't even get a meeting. He signed with the Brooklyn Nets like before they even opened up the doors. You're there giving all this money to Julius Randle. You're trading away Kristaps Porzingis to get rid of the Tim Hardaway contract because, again, your hubris of thinking what you are as an organization. I don't think the Knicks mean as much as they think they mean. And I think that Jim Dolan being there is still a problem. And I don't think Masai Ujiri looks at that and says, you know what I really like is to go to New York and potentially be hated and go into the situation where I'm dealing with Dolan and not having the love of Toronto. I saw Eric Kareen on Twitter the other day, and he had a great point where he just said, he's always gotten the sense that if Masai Ujiri leaves the Raptors, the next step is not going to be a basketball move, or it's not going to be a president of a basketball team. And that kind of makes sense to me. Like, Masai is, I've said it before, I think Masai is a genius. Like, I don't think that he's just a basketball smart guy. I think that it takes a certain level of intelligence to manage your time in a way where you can not only be trying to run a basketball franchise, but also elevate your country through sport. Like, I think Masai Ujiri is just a different level of dude, and that he's going to be poached by other industries if he ever becomes available. And one of those people is not going to be the New York Knicks. So it's -1. Get a new move, Knicks. Find your own thing. Stop just trying to go. I feel like James Dolan's just so obsessed that they bent them over a barrel on the Bargnani trade, and that he can't get over it. He wants Masai so badly.
So it's a 5 for me.
Oh.
And here's why. And I agree with much of what you said. You're not wrong. And I do agree with Kareen that, one, I'm not sure how long Masai wants to be an NBA executive anywhere, period. I think that having summers like the one where he had to say goodbye to DeMar and goodbye to Dwayne,
he probably hates that,
weigh on him in a way that isn't made better because the next summer he was riding around in a convertible with his arms in the air with fans that love him, sure. But his relationship with those two guys aren't going to be helped because of that. So I just think that whether it was having to call Gravis Vasquez and telling him he was trading him after he found him at Basketball Without Borders, or having to tell Bismack, I love you like a brother, but I can't responsibly give you anywhere near the amount of money.
I think Bismack's all right. Bismack's all right.
He is, but these are real relationships that he'll have longer than he's an NBA executive. So to Kareen's point and your point, I don't know how long he's going to be a president of basketball operations anywhere.
But why are you moderately afraid of the Knicks?
I'm not afraid of the Knicks.
You said 5.
I'm afraid of New York City. Because everything that you said about his aspirations outside of basketball and shining light on his country, his continent, and what the sport can do philanthropically, all of those things are easier and better for him to do in New York City, where he can walk on
Why is that true? Like, I don't understand why
because
that's true.
We have these things called the Today Show and Good Morning America and half of the late night shows. Like it is the Mecca media of the world. It is. Toronto's the Mecca media of Canada. New York is the Mecca media of the world, more so even than Los Angeles. And so you said it, he's a smart guy, and he knows that his story has been told countless times in this country by us at Sportsnet, by CBC, by Bell. His documentary is on Netflix Canada. But HBO Real Sports did a story this offseason of him bringing the trophy back home. And there's a bunch of people on Twitter who came out of the woodwork. It was like, I had no idea. Like, really? Where have you been? Giants of Africa is all over my social media every summer. But it's different when you have that amount of media power. So at some point, will he say, man, I don't want to work for James Dolan, but all of my interests outside of basketball and my life outside and after basketball will be helped if I'm in New York City? At some point, he could say yes. And furthermore, if James Dolan at some point is no longer the owner of the Knicks, well, then I think it goes
But the whole thing
even
is
higher.
Dolan's pursuing him, right? I respect the opinion. I can understand. I can draw those lines of, bigger market or bigger platform. I just think with globalization and with the platform he has here now, I'm not convinced that he's able to just completely alter the ceiling of the monetary gains that he has or his visibility. Like maybe I'm just being ignorant, but this was already done with the Washington angle. It was, well, Washington can allow him access to politicians and you know, this guy knows Barack Obama and all these things down the line, and his wife's from there, and it's just like, yeah, you can always come up with these concoctions, and people keep saying the new challenge thing. He needs a new challenge, a new challenge. How are the Raptors not a new challenge? They just lost Kawhi Leonard. Like, he's trying to build this team up and attract Giannis Antetokounmpo.
It's not a new challenge, it's new credit.
Yeah.
He is a made man in this city and country regardless of what happens.
But isn't he in the States as well? Like, from the standpoint of
No.
who doesn't think Masai-'s the best?
If he
though?
delivers a championship to New York, you don't think that's going to change his profile?
Sure.
Both in the sport and
Good luck.
globally?
You got to start with dumping all the contracts they just signed.
The scenario that he started with in Toronto was not great. Yeah. Moving Andrea Bargnani as your first move.
To the Knicks. He doesn't have the landing zone anymore. Like, he's going to trade Julius Randle to himself?
The point is, if he wins another championship here, right? Let's say.
He will.
Okay, fine, sure.
He would have already if it was for Kawhi staying.
If he wins another championship here, I mean, you can't. He already doesn't have to pay for a meal in the city. Mm-hmm. Well, he's not gonna have to pay for 2 meals. Like, he can't get any higher in our lore.
No, not to me.
He's already held at such a high esteem.
Masai Ujiri is more important to me than family members.
But that's not going to change whether or not
it won't.
That is my point. If he goes to New York and is the guy that delivers them a championship, all of a sudden he is the favorite son, both in Toronto and in New York City.
Nah. The Knicks have permeated your brain. Knicks mean nothing.
No, it has nothing to do with the Knicks.
You're a relic of the past,
It
Knicks.
has everything to do with those 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the actual team.
Listen, we got to wrap it up here. This was fun this week. Again, subscribe to this podcast. Review this podcast. Leave a little comment about this podcast. Next week, more banter, I promise. It's been Free Association on the Sportsnet Podcast Network. I'm JD Bunkus. He's Donnovan Bennett. Thanks for listening.